All right, welcome to episode one of this new version of Pop Talk. That's right, Pop's Talk is going to be throughout the week in the evening times, 5:30 or so will be our start time, and we will just kind of talk about different topics over the course of the week and different days. We'll kind of coordinate maybe with certain things that are going on. And this episode is going to be kind of like what I've been watching, particularly with Mrs. Pops. We're going to walk through some different films and really kind of talk about each one, and then you'll see those clips kind of pop up maybe over the week or two that are following, and it kind of makes it all just a lot easier for me as far as how I record, how I edit, how I put things together. And that's part of the evolution when your real life changes, is your YouTube approach or how you create content and engage with you guys that are out there needs to kind of evolve a little bit too. So it's going to work better for me than it will be to just keep making 4 or 5 videos on each one of these little movies that are, say, 5 or 8 minutes. But we're going to talk about some of those. And let's get to that list. Let's start right now. All right, the first one up is Arachnophobia, the 1990 horror comedy about spiders, directed by Mr. Kathleen Kennedy. That's right, Frank Marshall gets his directional debut here from a film that stars Jeff Daniels and John Goodman. And I really have to admit, I have a strong liking for and affinity coming from that sweet spot of the 1990s where I was really immersed into film and learning about different things. And this was a great film.
Everybody just get up very slowly.
The story centers around Ross Jennings, played by Jeff Daniels, and his family.
He's a doctor and she's a big city person, and they're going to this little small California town. They're going to take over the local practice, but unbeknownst to them, there's been an invasion of these little spiders. And yes, Jeff Daniels' character is riddled with a horrible case of arachnophobia.
What's wrong?
Some damn thing bit me.
Now, there is a little bit of a setup for this. We have a Venezuelan science expedition that has gone awry where the lead photographer there, Manley, was bitten and killed by a spider bite. And unbeknownst to the characters in the film, that spider has hitched a ride to that small California town and has interbred with the local spiders to create this new version of like soldier spiders. And they're the ones that are kind of like infesting and going across the town. They've bitten people and people start passing away, causing like a series of deaths. And that ropes Jeff Daniels' character into thinking something is way bigger than on initial. This is actually the scientist. He is the one who's kind of very skeptical at first, Dr. James Atherton, played by Julian Sands. And he and the expedition and all of that is actually kind of the initial part of the film, is kind of, we get that where we have Mark Taylor play Manley, and they kind of go deep into the jungle. They're going deep down in there, and they have this really interesting scene that's not in this trailer where they gas the tree, and then all of these things are coming and falling down. Of course, there's this massive thud with this giant spider, and they notice there's no sex organs on these little worker spiders and things like that. So that's how the general scope of the film is kind of structured around all that.
What is it? I think it's a new species of butterfly. We could call it Proteus manlia.
All right, now all of this tension is put up against and juxtaposed against John Goodman's exterminator character, Delbert. And I have to be honest, I'm a massive Delbert fan. I think Delbert is probably one of my most underrated roles that make me happy. So it's one of these things where I'm not talking about like an Oscar performance. I'm talking about every time I see a character that just makes me smile or makes me feel good or laugh or whatever. And Delbert is one of those characters. And I don't necessarily have this worked out in my head, but I kind of wish Delbert would have shown up in a few random movies, either made by or produced by Frank Marshall, so we could have seen more Delbert. That would have been kind of fun for me.
Yeah, that's right. I'm bad.
All right, the film is somewhat dark and edgy at times. I have this made-up subgenre that I call my gateway film. It's a gateway horror film, meaning that this is a film for, it's like a PG-13, but it's more like that pre-teen category, right? We get Gremlins, Poltergeist, a movie like this it's scary and edgy and suspenseful, but it's not so shocking or gross or inappropriate or gives anyone anything that will, keep you from wanting to go into the horror genre. This is sort of like that transitional thing. And I think this is one of those films that's good for that tween, I'd say 8 to 10, depending on, how your kid is, and then a little bit older than that.
This town is dead.
Better uncork my private stock.
And there really are some fun moments and some fun elements in this film. It gets a little silly, a little zany at times to kind of make everything work, everything wrap up. I'm not going to pretend it's a perfect film in that way, but I have a great time watching this film. I'm going to call it a solid 3 out of 5. This was a Pop's pick, not a Mrs. Pop's pick, but she goes along with it. She tends to laugh more at sort of like the B horror elements, sort of like the puppeteering, the way they cut and edit things. They'll throw a fake spider on someone. It makes her laugh because she knows it's fake. You could tell things are fake. I think that some of the stuff is very strategically done and well edited to feel way bigger than it is. I feel like if they were to remake something like this, it just really wouldn't work. There's going to be a lot of CGI and things like that, where this is obviously driven by a lot more of practical effects. And they use so many live spiders. They actually went, and there's whole backstories of trivia about going through what kind of spiders can do certain things, almost like a Spider Olympics to pick the right kind for different kind of scenes in the film. So that's how I came down on this one. We'll get to the next film right now.
Arachnophobia. 8 legs, 2 fangs, and an attitude.
Perk up, Lloyd. If we find the spider that did this, you can arrest him.
All right, this film is a Mrs. Pop's pick. That's right. And what a world we could have lived in if George Lucas had been able to purchase the rights away from the studio to do, a Flash Gordon film. And instead, he goes on to make Star Wars. And I got to be honest, the success of Star Wars is in a large part the reason that we even got a Flash Gordon film.
Probably the original impetus for the whole thing was I used to watch a serial on television called Adventure Theater, and they had Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe on it, and I used to love that. So I went off and wrote my own space opera.
What is interesting about the film is the fact that it is so campy. It is not for everyone. Look, Sam Jones plays the title character Flash, and you have some great performances, particularly Max von Sydow, but it is not. Timothy Dalton is in it as well. It is definitely that sort of like Batman 66 TV show campy, which Mrs. Pops loves. She really enjoys this movie. And early on, you have that feel for the campiness and how the effects are going to work. Here we see how Ming is zeroing in on Earth. He's creating all sorts of natural disasters, earthquakes, hailstorms, those kinds of things that entertain him. He has nothing else to do. He's this crazy Emperor Ming the Merciless on planet Mongo, who now is just taking his sights on poor Earth. And it kind of sucks up a couple of random characters that kind of go along for this ride, and little do we know that one of those is going to become this iconic hero. And I will admit that Ming is even more iconic in a lot of ways than Flash Gordon. I kind of forgot that he's not really in his iconic and memorable Flash sort of t-shirt, that it kind of comes along so much later in the film. But Ming, right from the get-go, is just phenomenal. So this is the scientist Zarkov who has figured out the fact that something external, extraterrestrial is happening, pushing the moon towards the Earth, therefore causing even more natural disasters. He's constructed a rocket. His lab partner, his lab employee, won't go on the journey. And unbeknownst to everyone else, during this hailstorm, one of these meteorites strikes an airplane that has Flash and his girlfriend on board. They crash near the scientist, who holds them hostage. They get on the spaceship, and that's how our adventure begins. I mean, obviously, the thing for me is it's just on scale fun. It's literally the adventures that we all knew and kind of grew up with from serials and the kind of stuff that George Lucas had fallen in love with. I think that the campiness is part of its appeal and its charm. And yet, a lot of people probably won't give it a chance because of that. And it is absolutely super silly and cheesy in a lot of ways. And some of the graphics don't hold up well at all. But at the same time, like I say, that is part of its charm. That's what makes it kind of a fun little adventure. Kind of like turn your brain off and have a good time. One of my favorite elements of the film are the Hawkmen, who had these insanely crazy costumes and wings on. The special effects seeing them fly is really quite bad. However, it is a fun backstory because I always kind of laugh because I realize that the story goes that they really couldn't sit down properly in these things. They have special stools in the film, but if you're trying to rest and take a breather on set with this many hours of production, they would actually have to lay down. So it is a quite great performance for what it is because I mean they're all in on it, which is kind of what you want. You want someone who's going to go all in. Hey, I'm going to play Prince Voltan. So yeah, Brian Blessed did a great job, and it's just kind of fun to kind of go down that rabbit hole for it. And as I said, Mrs. Pops just loves this. The Queen music, that constant, repeat of Flash and the music that flares up right there. She'll say that, and I get so excited. I'm always teasing her. And I'm glad that it didn't really get pulled away from De Laurentiis, Dino De Laurentiis. I don't know what Lucas would have done or been able to do. I don't know Flash Gordon's future in film, but I feel like it is a nice little time capsule of that era where you can feel like the low budget elements of filmmaking. You can feel what people would do and try to be creative to make something this ridiculous and spectacular also come together and make a good film. So again, I'm going to come down very strong on my similar rating. That's right, 3 out of 5 for me, with just a little fun rewatchability. We probably watch this one about every year. At some point or another, Mrs. Pops will bring it up, and I'm racing right there. Let's turn this on before you remotely renege on me, because now I'm all excited.
Strange object imaged in the Imperial vortex.
All right, next up is a Mrs. Pops pick. That's right, Murder on the Orient Express, the remake, not the original film. The classic mystery novel by Agatha Christie has been adapted by Kenneth Branagh, who directs and also stars as Hercule Poirot, the famous detective, and he's on this train during his murder, and he's got to figure everything out. It's typical Agatha Christie type stuff. And I think what works for us is that the film does a good job of us getting to know the detective. We have a little setup on how he figures something out, which actually catches the criminal. We have all the nuances with a little bit of an egg thing, and he steps in some animal poo, and then he has to step on the other foot because he feels like the uneven of it is worse than actually stepping in the poo. You get so much about his quirkiness and what makes him special and unique long before we get into the adventure. And I think that is part of the setup that works well in this film, and we miss a little bit of them building upon that in the subsequent sequels.
And did you find what I said you might?
Yes, sir. Just as you said.
Well, let's face it, the entire franchise, let alone this film, is totally on the shoulders of Kenneth Branagh. Can he pull it off with his ridiculous mustache, his attitude, some of his quirks, and his savvy skills? And can the audience buy into the fact that everything works on film? And I have to be honest that one of the things I think we enjoy about the film more than most people is the fact that it's so beautifully made. It's a beautifully shot film. The cinematography is great. The editing is great. We have beautiful costumes with all these different characters, great little color palettes and things that they do to make you feel like you're really part of this adventure. So I think that is one of the things that a lot of people who have been critical of the film don't give people like us that like the film credit for.
I see evil on this train.
There is an all-star cast from Johnny Depp to William Dafoe. You can see Josh Gad. You have just wonderful people playing different roles in the film, obviously making themselves suspects just by even being on the train, because the murder is so complicated and you don't quite totally know who's who and what's what, how it's going to play out. And I think the diversity of the cast that you get into is what makes this kind of interesting for repeated viewings, because you really start to appreciate like what Michelle Pfeiffer or Penelope Cruz is bringing to the table, why we're enjoying those sequences, what we're seeing that we get out of so many great performances there. Judi Dench, of course, she's got a great role. And even roles of people that you didn't really know much about at the time, which Daisy Ridley had landed in the old Star Wars universe. Olivia Colman is also one of the maids and turns out to be a cook. So there's a lot of elements that I think really makes this film work. It's presented well with the cinematography and how it's done. Performances are top notch and very solid. It stays faithful enough to the book that I think you can just enjoy the journey on it, not get yourself too caught up in some of the issues. But I know there's a lot of folks who just couldn't do it. They like the original film. They don't like how whodunits get adapted. I totally get that too. But for us, we're very strong on this movie. So I'm going to give this one, man, I'm between a 3.5 and a 4 because of the rewatchability. A 3.5 is out of 5 is probably the fair score here. 7 out of 10 or so. I guess if you double the scoring, maybe a 7.5 kind of thing. But I will be honest that she watches these every single year. We go through all 3 of them. We do enjoy this genre. And I feel like for some reason, these we do enjoy rewatching more than many other whodunits. So yeah, Murder on the Orient Express, the 2017 version. Not saying we won't watch the original one, because that's the one we picked.
If there was a murder,
What is going on?
then there was a murderer. The murderer is with us. And every one of you is a suspect.
And who are you?
My name is Hercule Poirot, and I am probably the greatest detective in the world.
All right, let me shift gears and do one that Mrs. Pops did not watch. I don't think Mrs. Pops has ever watched. She's not going to watch this movie. This is one that I saw in theaters back when I was a critic in 2020. I think coming out in 2020 turned out to be a disaster for this film. And this does kind of fall into the category where I really, really like a kind of bad movie. Like, I get it. Like, The Hunt is a politically charged mess of sort of like hyper femininity. It's got all of the tropes manifesting itself with politics. It's not trying to hide the ball at all. And during the marketing of this film, the President Trump had spoken about the film, panned the film without seeing it, I'm assuming, because it does involve liberal, leftist, whatever, targeting these conservative stereotypes. Now, with all of that said, let me get into the film a little bit and then talk about why I actually enjoy rewatching it.
What is happening? What is all of this?
Did you see that article? Every year, these liberal elites kidnap a bunch of normal folks like us and hunt us for sport.
You actually believed we were hunting human beings for sport. But you are.
With a group of people that just wake up outside. They're there, they're ball gagged, they're in this field, and there's like this crate that gets open, there's a pig that runs out, and then people start getting picked off one by one. Now, I will say what the film does, if you've never seen it, when that first experience watch is, it totally catches you off guard because it focuses on characters like this, whose nickname I believe is like, leggings or something like that. Like, it's yoga pants. That's what it is. And then you also have another one named Trucker, which is played by Justin Hartley. And they are very interesting right out of the gate for not much reason other than who they are. And one feels like totally astute at being in this environment, Trucker, and this girl who feels like she's completely lost in this world that she's been dropped into.
I'm playing an Arab refugee, but I identify as white. I think that's problematic too, in some way.
You wanted it to be real, so you decided it was.
But this concept of hunting people down is not a new one. It's been done a million times. That's not the issue. The issue is the fact that we take Betty Gilpin as Crystal, and she's, I think her nickname is Snowball, I think is what her nickname is. Anyway, she's basically like this former soldier who has, like, she knows how to do the compass. She knows how to pick a lock. She can figure out traps and read people really well. So it gives her sort of an upper hand in the game that the other people don't have. And we see that pretty early on with this store sequence where we get introduced to these people that are running this store. We see what happened to a couple of players before she walks in. All of this is very immersive and also very entertaining for me. And I am also willing to acknowledge it is ridiculous. It is so on the nose with stereotypes and tropes and ridiculous comments that I don't know what to say.
Heck. Why are you doing this to us?
Because Jesus told me to.
There's this scene where the store owner takes out a person like he's dying. He says, and by the way, climate change is real. And then the one person, he makes a comment in front of the wife about black people. And I forget what he says, but it's like it's something about that being inappropriate or not. They're constantly bickering over what they're allowed to say and not say, stereotypes. And of course, there's a comment about, owning weapons and why you own so many and what are they for, and I have a right to do them, and the Constitution references and all those kinds of things. It never stops. I think for me, why it works is because it makes you feel like you're somehow relating to her going through this journey, even though even her stuff is over the top. And it's to witness how ridiculous and silly everyone sounds. You feel like the people that are so left politically, who are making all these random comments and how they're judging people and they're being critical because they're so full of themselves of who they are. And then you have the conservatives who are always like ridiculous talking points and sound bites that they're spewing, and they're also caricatures of like podcasting YouTubers or hunters and just all of the things that are in our culture and people bicker and fight over is sort of represented. And I know it's sort of a slanted perspective and one group's hunting the other group, but I liked all this. I thought it was a fantastic sort of mockery of everything, but it's so on the nose. I also know it's not very good. It's not subtle at all. As I said, the film is also ripe with the ridiculous stuff. It's in 2020. We're in like the heyday of when stuff was getting made, whether it's Blumhouse or not, females taking out men that are way too big for her to be able to do, her being basically, completely full of like plot armor and safe from anything happening to her until we have another woman that she has to fight at the end of the film. Well, Hilary Swank does play the main character that we don't really see much of until the end. Her name is Athena. And what had happened is they have this sequence of text messaging that's in the past about gathering people up, going up to the quote manor to hunt some deplorables and all of that. It was not evidently literally happening. But now the story is unfolding and we actually understand those details. She's like, you did this to me. You forced me to make this a reality. It's such a retarded take. It's such a stupid concept that you want to get a free pass for doing the thing that you were accused of doing. It is insane. And like I said, I understand it's not a good movie in this regard. It's so stupid to have sort of like this contradictory paradox that doesn't really quite work. But I think it's because it feels almost like mockery and satire to me than something I'm supposed to actually take so serious. So I feel like the film doesn't really have a good identity. Like, what are you supposed to do with this movie? Like, I don't even know how to. Is it more comedy or horror? Is it meant to be dark comedy or satire? I'm not sure I totally know what they set out to make versus what we ended up with. So for me, willing to acknowledge that my score on this movie is lower than the way I've been describing it, it's a 2 out of 5 movie. It's a 4. It's a low. It's not a very good movie. Got that? Okay, put that on the wall. I will watch. I don't own this movie, but anytime it does rotate regularly through the streaming services. Because if you've never seen it and you just want to have a laugh, if you can laugh at it, I think you're going to enjoy the movie like I do. If you're going to get all bent out of shape, it's going to hurt your fifis, then this would definitely, you're going to get angry or frustrated or whatever. I have a good time with this movie. So for me personally, I score the movie higher, more like a 3 out of 5. Rewatchability is there because, again, I don't take this movie that serious. It's just absurd and silly and stupid. And I hear the stupidness that comes out of the characters' mouths, and I think about people in real life not understanding that's how they sound and that's what they say. The film represents and mocks a lot of that. That's why I enjoy watching The Hunt. And no, Mrs. Pops will not watch it with me.
What kind of sick people would even think of something like that?
White people. We're the worst.
All right, the next film up is one that I enjoyed right from the get-go when it dropped in theaters. We actually have talked about it here on the channel. We did a Talk Hard on it. We actually had director Ron Underwood on with us. That's right, Tremors, 1990, 35th anniversary this year. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I watch this movie every single year. It's one of my favorite sort of creature films. It's probably my favorite cultish creature film, meaning one that didn't make any money or one that was considered like a box office failure. It's probably among my favorite that are in that category, even though I think, obviously Jaws, I think, is the best creature movie. It's obviously, it was a phenomenal blockbuster and all of that.
That's what I like. Graboid! That's it, Graboid! Jesus, Walter. We're gonna be sorry you don't give it a name.
Tremors, for me, the fact that you have this unique set of characters who are now thrown into the situation where there's some sort of creature. I don't even know that we understand exactly where they come from, as they're basically the desert town of perfection is under siege, and you get all these different characters that are trying to survive till the end.
Big speech, and you got to get the police up here. And you got to step on it.
Consider it stepped on.
And everything centers around Val and Earl, these two little handyman guys that are basically just trying to make their way through life, trying to figure out also how maybe they just get out of perfection. And you meet them, you understand how they live, you job to job, struggling to make cash. They bicker amongst each other, but obviously they have each other's back. And you have all this massive setup for character stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, nobody handles garbage better than we do.
They meet this scientist, Rhonda. She's out there working on her graduate student geology project, and she's doing seismology type work and discovers that these graboids are creating these big tremors. And that's what everybody is picking up on.
Senses seismic vibration. It can hear every move we make, especially on this rock. It's a perfect conductor.
That means we're stuck. That pisses me off.
Meantime, the two boys run across a construction site and some dead bodies, and they run all these different things before they discover that one of them actually had grabbed the truck. And then you end up with this whole series of events where they're trying to figure out what are they actually up against. It's played for levity at times, tension and darkness at other times as people are, getting found out. You got a couple of interesting little jump scares and like what is actually going on kind of moments. And of course, they also don't want to approach anything from the same perspective, right? Because Earl's older, little wiser, definitely more cautious, whereas Kevin Bacon's character, Val, it seems like he's more knee-jerk reactions. He doesn't quite know what he's doing, but he's also very heroic.
Good luck, shithead.
Don't worry about me, jerk off.
You also get the survivalists, Bert and Heather. That's right. This is Reba McEntire. Such a great performance from her. Michael Gross playing Bert, and they are these gun nut survivalists. It is by far an unforgettable performance from the two of them. They are phenomenal.
Broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you, you bastard? We killed it. You got that? We killed that mother humper. Come back.
And I love the fact that we have just great practical effect work that just kind of keeps working its way through the film. We get all of the different things that are happening that imply a lot more than what we actually see. And it's all just based on the performance of these characters. Can they pull it off or not? Can they make everything work? And I think that's why I've always enjoyed this film. Now, again, maybe not the best film in the world. Maybe it has some mixed reviews. I don't know. I feel like the legacy of this film is actually way greater than its original reviews. For me, this is a solid 4 out of 5. I watch this all the time. I don't really have any major issues with the script and the story and the fact that we don't even have to have a lot explained on what is actually the reason that these things have attacked whatever. And I also know there's a ton of other Tremors films. God, I never watched any of them. I think I might have seen pieces of them over the years, little here, little there, but I don't own them. No interest to really have anything ruined for me. I even know there's talks of a TV series coming, but I'm also very, very skeptical. If it doesn't have Ron Underwood involved, I feel like I'm not sure I believe it. But that being said, the character work, the fact that we have so many great practical effects built around the right type of tension. I love the performances from everybody. I think that they have really bought in very well of the kind of like the world that they're in, and that they're in these sort of ridiculous threats and scenarios. Of course, Victor Wong is in this as well, who I, of course, adore because he's in like Big Trouble in Little China. And he obviously was, he's in the Last Emperor movie that I haven't seen, which that was a big issue in 1987. But Three Ninjas, he's been in a lot of stuff. So, again, it all is these characters. It's the fact that Val and Earl are so great. Bert and Heather are so great. The action, they pull off this ridiculous graboid special effect thing. And I know it doesn't always age great for folks. I get it. But for me, I'm there. I'd watch it. And I don't think Mrs. Pops, I even asked her, I just watched this one. I don't know how she'd come down on watching Tremors. I think she would probably be open to it and could laugh along with some of it. But yeah, for me, that's my take on Tremor. 35 years, guys. Oh, hit me hard thinking that it's been 35 years.
Well, it just suddenly hit me,
All right, my last film is going to be one that I expect to get some heat on. I totally get that I'm going to make people angry. I totally get that people adore this 1997 film. They love Nick Cage. They love John Travolta. They love John Woo. Yeah, that's right. Face Off, a 1997 silly action film where basically, that's right, they swap faces.
You're not having any fun
this summer. It's good to be bad.
If I didn't love you so much, I'd have to kill you.
What a predicament!
Face Off is an absolute blast. Magnificent.
Ow!
Explosively entertaining. Travolta and Cage are perfect.
Don't it just break your heart?
It's not like any film you've ever seen. Face Off.
I am the king.
Rated R. Starts Friday, June 27th.
That's right.
Everywhere.
Sean Archer, played by John Travolta. He's trying to hunt down and capture Castor Troy, played by Nick Cage. It ultimately culminates with this weird surgical procedure where they're actually able to face swap.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And the story is absurd in every way. The film is full of tons of action and definitely these silly moments and shootouts and stuff like that. But I'll be perfectly honest, the film works best when it's Nick Cage being crazy. It doesn't work as well when it's John Travolta being Nick Cage being crazy.
It's like looking in a mirror, only not.
Sir, why are you so upset? It's just Pollux Troy.
The film works best when it's Nick Cage being crazy. Doesn't work as well when it's John Travolta being Nick Cage crazy. Nick Cage is fearless and insane. He pulls off these crazy eyes. He has all these crazy mannerisms and body movements and things that really work. And Travolta trying to do that just doesn't really work for me. The premise of everything also hinges on the fact that we ignore the voice changing part of it. There's this thing involving how they change their voice. It also seems like, or was kind of set up as though that could go bad. But then later in the movie, we just don't do that. We ignore all of that. So the film is actually way over 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I think that's kind of where the problem lied for me, where there's this middle where Travolta as Nick Cage character, Castor Troy's undercover, right? He's sort of like sympathizing with one of the girlfriends. It's actually the person turns out to have had a kid. So, I don't know. It doesn't work. And meantime, Castor Troy as Travolta has gotten with his wife, and he's kind of been weirdly, oddly inappropriate with his daughter.
Would you like anything else once we're airborne?
Oh, peach. I can eat a peach for hours.
I just think for most people, they just remember some of the insane action sequences and explosions and stuff, and they let the movie kind of go from there. And I made a comment online about Face Off a little bit, and I know people are like, well, if you're not, getting high and watching this movie, you're not drunk, you don't understand its point. I'm like, well, that's not the only reason we judge a movie is how it is whenever you're in those conditions. So I actually just was so let down. If you had asked me before I did this rewatch, I probably would have scored this very, very high. I would have told you that I really did enjoy it, but I just did not enjoy the movie at all. Its dumbness was so bad that I couldn't enjoy it. It is great for action. I think Nick Cage is super fun and silly in it. Travolta's okay, but the storyline and all of this, and then some of these action things and sequences and what's happening, it goes on way too long. Would have easily loved to lose that 20 minutes and get down to the 2 hours. I think it would have done better. I'm going to try to be lenient here and give it a 2.5 out of 5. I don't think I would want to sit through 2 hours, 20 minutes again. If I watch it again now, if I can remember my feelings from this moment, I might skip through a few sequences to just kind of get on with it. But overall, probably one of my bigger letdowns of the recent watch list. I'm kind of disappointed. People love this movie, though. People are probably going to really be mad at me that I don't love it the way they do. Sorry about that. The idea of the face swap and things like that when he's in prison and he's out of prison, and then the wife and then not the wife and then the girlfriend part, and it's just way too many people. And it's just also the conveniences that Nick Cage character, the Castor Troy, can also have that surgery pulled off in just the right way and just pull everything off. And there's no scars. There's also like the scene at the very end of the movie, because the one character, I can't have your face back. There's not a scar on his face, of course. Makes no sense whatsoever. The scientist who had done this procedure has died. Don't know how anything got done. Don't know how that all it worked out. It just does. But don't think about it, right? That's what we're supposed to do, not think about it. So that's sort of the place I ended up with this, was just like, yeah, it was all right. I had fun. I get it, guys. I can have fun. All right, and with that, let's wrap up this Pop Talk. I don't know if you guys are having a good time doing it, hanging out with the old Pops and doing the Pops Talk, but yeah, this was my first one. I thought we'd do a catch up on some different movies and different reviews and comments and thoughts on some of those watch experiences that I've been having over the last few weeks. Put these out there, throw that together for you guys and have a good time. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. And then until next time.
We are